listening to Real Coaching Radio TV, building a positive network.
Today's podcast is brought to you by Kids Talk Foundation, a global nonprofit organization providing youth advocacy, television programming, and training services in the United States, along with comprehensive medical and educational services for the developing world, most recently in Kenya, Africa, where Kids Talk Foundation provides a feeding program, medical care, and educational services to over 1,300 young people each day. Please help our youth and place your donation. Go to www.kidstalk.org. Are you in the entertainment industry? If you answered yes and you want to promote yourself, your passion, and profession, check out Creative Independent Artists magazines at CIAartists.com, endorsed by Kids Talk Foundation worldwide.
Welcome to Unopened Gifts, the weekly one-hour program dedicated to understanding the human potential that lies within us and the abundant life that lies before us. Inspired by the personal journey of our host, James McPartland.
Yes, an inspiring journey it has been. It's been an inspiring journey simply to get on this program today due to technical opportunities, otherwise known as technical challenges. So some of my own open gifts that came in terms of internet connections. Thanks for bearing with us, everybody. Welcome to this Thursday afternoon edition of Unopened Gifts. As the commercial alluded to, I'm your host, James McPartland. For those of you who are joining us today, excuse me, perhaps for the first time, or coming back, thanks for coming back, and you know by purpose of having been with us before, the intention of this program is to inspire you, the viewer or the listener, by virtue of the inspiring stories we have, by virtue of the guests we have on the program. And today will not disappoint you. Our special guest today is Body by Seth. That's right, Seth Chernoff joins us from the great Keystone State of Colorado, and I have gotten to know Seth by virtue of a book that arrived in my home some months ago and a conversation or two that's happened this week. This is a very incredible man who's found some gifts that came into his life in, let's just say, uniquely wrapped in different configurations than what we might think of when we think of gifts. Now, Seth is an entrepreneur, a family man, I'd say an athlete, and a man who's going to tell some of his story about things that he's overcome in his life and how he's overcome those things. The two things that come to mind happen to be two of the same things, and those are overcoming cancer, beating cancer 2 times. Now, Seth is also a guy who studies and teaches the art of happiness, so we have a lot to learn from his journey and a lot of happiness to come from this evening's program. So Seth, welcome aboard.
Thanks for having me.
You bet. Sorry for the long delay in warm-up, but like fine wine, we are indeed ready for you. And you know, as I mentioned to you, interesting thing is when we were having you, or considering each other in terms of having you come on the program, your book arrived at my home, and there was no sort of indication of why that book arrived, and so I knew that it was either the mailman or an angel. And it turned out to be, I think, an angel, because as I read a lot of your story, it certainly reinforces what we're trying to do by this virtue of our program called Unopened Gifts. And that's let people see that no matter what's going on in their life, setbacks being one of them, that those could actually be gifts, perhaps even transformational in a way, if you will, to find your ultimate path or your destination. And you've had more than your fair share of bumps in the road. Can you tell us a little bit more of the Seth Chernoff story?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. I think I would say I've had my fair share, as probably all of us have. As you alluded to, I think we have an opportunity to see these challenges as a path to greatness, as a path to empowerment and enlightenment in many ways, if we choose to experience them that way. You know, I've experienced cancer a few times. I live with chronic pain since I was a boy. I think I've faced, you know, physical pain, emotional pain, spiritual pain, mental anguish, just about everything that was required to get me to where I am today. But I think that those were all important stepping stones on my path. And really, you know, helped formulate my message and everything else.
So, you know, as you describe it, and I didn't mean to allude that you've had more than your fair share, but it's interesting. The reason I reference it that way is, you know, the heart of this broadcast is to encourage people to overcome obstacles, and many of those obstacles are self-imposed by virtue of the stories that we tell ourselves. And sometimes we can magnify challenges, and there's a saying that goes, you get what you focus on, or what you focus on expands. And you would have rhyme or reason to say, you know, life's dealt me an unfair deck of cards. And there's not much reason for me to continue to pursue what I'm doing because these setbacks could be insurmountable. But yet, that's not been the case for you, and probably symbolic of the message we try to get across to our viewers and our audience. Tell us a little bit about the learning of cancer and really what that did to the mind and the stories that perhaps were going on, and sort of how you reprogrammed yourself to work your way through.
I'd love to. Excuse me. So, I guess I would just to frame one thing that you said, that I think the majority of obstacles are self-imposed. If you look at anyone's excuse for why they're not living their happiness or living their truth or doing fulfilling work or whatever it is, most of the excuses are not legitimate. They're not things that really stand in the way. They're just things that we come up with that allow us to live kind of in our safety net. We live in a mediocre way, or we live in our pettiness because it's safe. We like to repeat the patterns that we know, and actually creating new pathways to our happiness take risks. It takes facing our anxiety and our fear, and I think that is what makes us human. I mean, that's the excitement of life. If you try to avoid all of that, then you're subsisting to death, and there's really nothing to that. For me, cancer was a really great teacher for me, and it wasn't that I had any amazing ahas or bits of awareness, but more of an awakening, and in that it just reinforced what I knew inside and enforced my truth in a way that I wasn't prepared to fully live at the time. I was an entrepreneur when I got diagnosed the first time. I had a staff. My life was great. I was madly in love. I had a family. I had a big house. I had everything that I could possibly want. So when I got sick, it didn't make sense because I was really healthy. I ate organic food. I exercised every day. I meditated. I was a kind person. I really did all the storybook things that you're supposed to do to keep yourself healthy and happy and fulfilled and spiritual and everything else. So it really was something that required me to go deeper. And that deeper place was for me to start writing in a way that was consistent with the work that I've been doing. I've been studying true happiness and fulfillment in life for a couple decades, and I just wasn't really ready to go live that on the outside. I didn't really want to go out in the world and teach. I didn't really want to write. I didn't want to lecture. At the time, I was really happy with what I was doing. And so, cancer really confirmed for me that, no, it was time. It was time for me to start making some changes and really be consistent with my path.
And Seth, let me ask you, because you described that healthy lifestyle that, listen, we all strive to perform on a consistent basis, yet my words, not yours, was there resistance to do the writing and the further work that perhaps was part of your calling? And do you think was there any correlation to illness associated with resistance?
It's a great question. I guess I'll answer it in a different way. My resistance, and I do believe that is the reason that people don't follow their path, is many times their own resistance. And for me, I had my own, whether I didn't want to stick my neck out, or I had fear, or I had anxiety. But I was I was just complacent, I guess. And it wasn't that I didn't have dreams and desires, and it wasn't that I wasn't working hard and that I wasn't creating something great. It just wasn't as great as it could have been if it had been consistent with my truth. And so the cancer basically was the awakening that, look, it's great what you're doing right now. It's great that you're helping people in whatever way that you see fit, but there's a bigger message here, and it's time to do that. And so for 5 years, I just wrote on top of that. So it wasn't like I quit my job and said, hey, I'm going to go live in the mountains as a monk and follow my spiritual path. It was, okay, you have kids, you have work, you work long hours, but on top of that, now you're going to be doing writing every single day. And so I was just guided to write, and so every day I'd write for 2 to 3 hours. Usually it'd be after the kids went to bed. My wife would fall asleep. It'd be like midnight, and I'd write till 3. Then I'd be up early the next morning back at work, and I did that for 5 years. Now, in hindsight, what I'd probably tell you, Mac, is that I think I overworked myself, and I think I got myself sick a second time because I just didn't have balance in my life. I just was burning the candle at both ends, if you will. And so when I got sick the second time, when I came out of it, the awakening for me was, well, you're not going to live if you don't really make some changes, because you can't keep up this pace. And so at that point, we sold a few of our companies, my wife and I shut one down, and I just focused on the work I was doing, and it was really fulfilling and validating, and was consistent with my truth, which took me to a whole other place in my life.
So Seth, let me ask you, if there were sort of, at least on this conversation, sort of 3 data points, let's say cancer 1, cancer 2, and now cancer free, and you described sort of a blissful environment at the first stage, a lot of writing in the second stage, and the learnings, which is, all of which has led you to the third stage. but with a strong knowledge and understanding of happiness, whether that's the art of happiness, the science of happiness, the practice of happiness. If you look at yourself during those stages, and you can now look back, the benefit of hindsight to connect the dots, where were you on the happiness scale, if you will, in each of those periods? My suspicion would be is you're probably happiest now, but that would only be an assumption.
You know, most people would have said I was really happy back then. But I think that I had the ability to, and I was actually really happy, but there was still one part of me that wasn't happy. And although it felt like a small part, it was actually the biggest part. Because, you know, I just personally believe that we each have a unique purpose in this life, and it's up to us to determine what that is and to live it in every waking moment. And for me, if I was sacrificing any part of that, then there's no way that I can find true fulfillment, and as a result, there's no way I can be truly happy. So, you know, I couldn't really quantify it, but I was pretty darn happy when I got sick the first time. And then during the next 5 years, I was pretty happy. But when I got through the second cancer and I really got on my path, there's nothing that could have compared me or could have prepared me for the amount of happiness I would feel and experience by truly following my path in a way that was meaningful for me. And so it didn't mean, again, that I didn't quit my job. I just did it in a more fulfilling, service-oriented way where, and it's not that I don't live a prosperous life, I work hard and I'm rewarded for my contributions, and that's what I feel like everybody is if they follow their path. But when you actually do it first from a place of service and a place of contribution, then no matter what happens after that, you feel fulfilled, and you know that you've lived your path, you've lived your truth. Whatever happens after that, whether you get paid for it, whether you go on to do bigger and better things, it doesn't even matter. But as long as service comes first, which when it does for me, my life is absolutely much more meaningful and fulfilled.
And so I suspect that like any great teacher, you have a chance to learn more by virtue of teaching. And given the work that you do, and if you were sort of assess, if you will, the environment that you're in and the people that you speak to, or just say the people that you come across from a sort of a general population perspective, and we'll use America, North America here, how would you gauge the happiness of people these days? And, you know, I'm sure people want to learn specifically about happiness, but what is it if there's a sense of less than being happy that's sort of been sort of the missing ingredients for folks, or if they looked at life a different way, they'd suddenly experience happiness?
It's a good question, and I would just say that there's layers of happiness, that most people are happy in certain areas of their life. The problem is they're not happy everywhere because they make such big sacrifices in certain parts of their life. They stay in a job that's not really fulfilling, but they need the money. They stay in an abusive relationship, but maybe they find their happiness at church or in their spirituality. Maybe they find their happiness when they're exercising or walking their dog. They find happiness in pockets, but finding true happiness that's a lasting happiness requires a lot of other things, and that really is my work. That's what I teach, and it really is a lot of little things. You know, sometimes growing up, we get this illusion that, gosh, if we find the perfect spouse, we're just going to be happy. If we get that great, perfect job, our life's going to be amazing. And we know it's just an illusion. It's all the little things that contribute to a life of happiness and fulfillment. So balance for me was one of those things. But I think for the people that I speak to that come to me, that buy my books and have come to my seminars and such, you know, it's not that they're miserable people. In fact, if you met them, you'd probably think, wow, these people are fantastic. But there's a void inside of them that they haven't filled, that they're looking for meaning in their life, but they're looking in the wrong places, because we have a tendency to look outside of ourselves for the answers. But we know there's no answers out there. There's no answers in our stock portfolio. There's no answers in what's happening at the office in and of itself. The answers are within us. They come as a reflection of how we show up, how we bring our inner truth out into the world. And so that is really the deeper connection, that it's not that people are miserable when they come to me, it's that they want more out of their life. And I think there's something to be said for people who really, they desire more out of their life because they're looking to fulfill something inside of them that they know is very meaningful for them.
You know, you touch on great points, and as I've mentioned on this program now, particularly since the first of the year, you know, I think many of us come out of the canon on New Year's Eve, ready for the new year. This is going to be the year of the new job, the stronger relationship, the child, the family, the writing the book, the getting fit, and we go to willpower for the most part. And, you know, after a while, willpower can last so long, and our habitual patterns tend to take over, and best intentions turn to get pushed back to the side, and that becomes frustrating for people. And perhaps, as you described, all of those are someday aisles or on the path, and it seems to be I can't be happy or feel fulfilled until I arrive. My study of the game of life, and I'm a consummate student, is, if we call it mastery of the game of life, as in terms of mastery, by definition, you never get there. So the question that I have that's coming through, as I mentioned, questions would come from our viewers and listeners. So if I was to do one thing today, given everything that's going on in my world, and the topsy-turvy lack of sleep and children and jobs and pressure and finance and holidays and stress and strain and lose the weight and find time to work out and cultivate relationships, I get tired and unhappy thinking about it. How could I look at it differently?
Great points. And I think you and I are very much in alignment there of kind of the way we see the world. I think that, we're all teachers and we're all students. It's just the perspective and kind of what we're actually seeking in our life. And I think that attitude allows us to continue learning and evolving and also being of service. But, we are kind of overwhelmed with our task list. We're overwhelmed by all the priorities in our life, with all the things that we feel like we have to do. And I think it's all perspective. It's kind of like, if you take out your GPS and you programmed in your desired life, if you were able to say, this is where I want to be in 5 years or 10 years, and you punch in your GPS and somehow it would map for you the most efficient and effective way to get there, the first thing it would do is determine where you are in your life. And I think a lot of times that we have this illusion about where we are in our life that's not consistent with reality. And one of the things that I teach is this life inventory worksheet. And basically, in order to go anywhere in your life, you have to start by analyzing where you are in this present moment. And so I always advise people just to stop. Stop striving, stop desiring, just stop where you are and just look at where you are. Look at the condition of your life, the cleanliness of your house, the quality of your relationships with your spouse and your children. Look at the quality of your work, if it's fulfilling, if it's rewarding, and just be honest with yourself. You don't have to share it with anybody, but you have to stop and really be honest about what your life looks like, because you've created that life. You can't blame everybody for all of your problems. If you looked at your life as a sum total of decisions that you've made over 30, 40, 60, 70 years, those decisions created your life. And you may be able to look around and say, gosh, well, the government did this, and that ex-boyfriend betrayed me there, and whatever it is, you may be able to blame a lot of people for little things, but in the end, those are all choices you made that created your life. And it's not something so that you can berate yourself. It's a tool so you can empower yourself and realize that you really are consciously in control of your present moment. And in order to consciously manifest your future, you have to actually co-create that in the present moment. And so you have to start here. Here's where it all happens. Here's where we understand the past, here's where we plan the future, and here's where we actually take all of our action steps to move forward in life. So I just say, stop. Just stop what you're doing, stop your task list, stop all your phone calls, just take a moment and sit down and look at your life and be honest with yourself about where you are. Not that you have to make yourself wrong for the way it looks, but just so you have a baseline to compare yourself as you actually start taking conscious steps into your dream existence, if you will.
So you're going to see me waving my arms, and all that's going to do is reinforce your message and put the light on above me. Seth, what I think is interesting about that, because I think we all think in pictures, and the picture that comes to mind as you describe that is we're all striving and we're heading and we're moving and we're pushing in specific directions. Sometimes we're not exactly sure after a while what we're going after. We sort of get robotic. We're on the treadmill. But nonetheless, we're on a quest. And I think what I hear you say is, if life was a map and map was in front of you and you were seeking specific destinations, best to know where you're starting from, to then determine perhaps the best route to get there, or if in fact there is a route to get there, or if you need actual help in terms of people you put on a bus or in an airplane, or help you swim across a specific channel. I think what I hear you say is if you know where you're starting from, it's a lot easier to define and get to where you want to go.
I absolutely believe that. I think it's Stephen Covey who says, begin with the end in mind. Isn't that Stephen Covey? You would know that. And I always believe that that's fantastic, but you have to know where you are, and that's how you can plan your point A to point B. I think, if you're looking at specific tools, something tangible that people can apply to their life right now and to your listeners right in this moment, I always say, being somebody who's faced cancer and faced death and still gets to get up every morning and feel grateful for life, I always feel like perspective is everything. And no matter where you are and what obstacles you're facing, what issues you're confronting, if you can find that space to start from gratitude, no matter what's happening in your life, if you can find that gratitude, then it actually propels you, puts you in the right frame of mind, helps you see that pathway. And sometimes, like you said, you're right, you don't know what the end result is. You know that you got to head down this road and you're going in this direction, but you don't know what the outcome is. And I'm just saying that's okay. You don't have to know. But if you can find that space of gratitude, then from there you find kindness, you find service, you find fulfillment, and all of a sudden you're exactly where you want to be, and you haven't gotten anywhere yet. You just know that in this moment, you're exactly where you need to be.
Really interesting. Let me ask you this, Matt. I've heard it said long ago, and I strive to continue to believe it, that the past doesn't equal the future. And yet the past provides us reference points with which we use to base decisions on a go-forward basis, some of them empowering and quite often several disempowering. When you look at your life and or people that you work with, and maybe someone's had a specific setback, maybe they've had an illness, maybe they've had a loss of a relationship, maybe they have a loss of a business, and then they're looking out to the future. And there is a pre-recorded message about setback and failure, and often, I believe, can happen is that, we may see that event lingering and then showing up again in the future. How do you break the pattern, if you will, or to reinforce the fact that the past doesn't equal the future, or even maybe in more relevant terms to you, you have been blessed with the gift of cancer 2 times. Do you think that good things come in packages of 3, or is that completely behind you?
So I guess a couple of distinctions. The past creates the present, right? I mean, if you look at the present moment, you wouldn't be here if it wasn't for the past. In any given second, it's the past that's gotten you here. So I don't want to discredit the past, but I have a simple system that I call the 3 L's with overcoming the past, because as you know, many people have a habit of having something happen in the past which was traumatic or painful, or whatever happened, it was something that they wouldn't want to relive. Yet in the moment, they constantly relive it because they think about it, they question it, they look into the world through the eyes of somebody who's been betrayed, who's been hurt, who's been traumatized. And I'm not saying that it's okay. I'm not saying that what happened in your past is okay. But every moment you're unwilling or unable to let go of something that happened in the past, you're preventing yourself from being fully present in the moment. And that will absolutely prevent you from actually stepping into your future. So release, forgiveness, all that are absolutely essential to finding happiness in your life. So for me, I just go with the 3 L's. It's learn from your mistakes. Figure out what was there for you. We've all had our heart broken. We've all had issues in our life. But through every situation, there's something that we can learn. If you can discover the learning, then all of a sudden you can step into it saying, you know what, that wasn't very pleasant, but I got through it, and now my life's great. And I would put cancer in that category for me. Number 2, you learn to love, because love brings you to the right space. It brings you out of the rational mind into a place where you can feel, you can sense, and in a space of kindness. And then you let go, and you move forward. You let go of the past, you release it, and you allow yourself to fully embrace the present moment, not dragging the past into you. You bring with yourself the lessons, and then you release it and step into the future that you want. So for me, I don't know what the future holds. I don't know how much time I have on this planet, or anybody else for that matter. But what I can say is that as long as I'm living my truth right now, then it's a life well lived. And I think anybody should be able to aspire to that. It's not about what happens tomorrow. It's about what happens right now. That really is the only place that life is lived.
So, Seth, I think you definitely have a future in the business that you're in. And it's inspiring to hear your words, because your words, although they're in a book, they come from real life practical application, with yourself being your own sort of pilot project of the great game of life. And in using the phrase unopened gifts, which is a book of mine that's due to come out in June, and the gifts that you've shared by virtue of your journey, gifts and life lessons come in very unique forms and packages and shapes and sizes. And again, thinking that we think in pictures, I often think of a large box with a bow on top and wrapping paper that we open up, and inside is another box, and inside is another box, and inside is another box. And you strike me as an individual who has found your box and have been unwrapping. And there's probably another 1,000 boxes in there in terms of the depth of the gifts that you've been given, and therefore the work that you can do in service. What's next? What do you hope to unwrap in a few of those magical boxes that you possess?
I probably like yourself, I am very clear that I'm here to be of service. That's really my whole path in life. And, the Manual for Living has afforded me the ability to do that in a lot of different ways. I'll just tell you, one of the things that I'm really excited about, I think we talked about it very briefly earlier this week, is I've been getting feedback from the people who followed my work that they want something more engaging for me. They want daily action items, they want video, they want audio, they just want more. They want to be able to apply something in their life every day. And so I've been working on this video series that's a 90-day total happiness immersion program. And so I think that's kind of the next step for me. It's really a fun way that I can do more. You know, it's one thing to write a book and you send it in the world, and you don't always know the lives that you touch. And I think it's the same for anybody. It doesn't have to be a book. It can be just how you show up at work. It's you put something out there and you don't know whose lives you contribute to. It's mostly present with radio, which is one of the reasons I love radio, is that you never know the lives that you touch. I mean, you never know whose lives you're impacting with the words that you're saying. We're going to go out in the world and do something maybe a little different. Maybe they'll just compliment their barista at Starbucks. Maybe they'll just be a little kinder to their spouse. Maybe they'll find happiness in some little way that'll contribute to their overarching ability to serve. We don't know that, but we still show up and we still are of service. And I think that's really what's amazing in life, is that if we can have that faith and just know that as long as we're showing up and doing our part, it doesn't matter what the outcome is. It doesn't matter what happens outside of ourselves. As long as we're doing our part, we will feel fulfilled, and then it'll be just exponential when we get the feedback that actually other people are feeling and expressing and, you know, enhancing their lives as a result.
You know, I think there's a lot of gift wrapping paper that we're going to be seeing on the floor around you in the next time that we do this broadcast, because it's clear that you're on your path, you're using your gift, your gifts, you're living your truth, and that's something I think we can all learn a lot from, because at the end of the day, particularly as one moves up the ladder of the age groups, you know, when you're living truthfully and when you're honest, you don't have to have a great memory, nor are you concerned with how others may judge you, and it's unfortunate that people judge what they do. You know, the scorecard comes internally, and for many of us from a source above. And you are a gift to this program by being on the show, because it allows other people to look at their life and to take some tools with them to use. And my intention is, right after this broadcast, there's some things people have taken away and that they can use. So in light of that, tell me a couple things here. One is, people want to find out more about you, buy your books, learn about the tools that you described. Where do we find you?
My website is Manual for Living. That's also the name of the book. There's actually 2 books that are out right now. There's actually 3 books in the series. Reality is the first one, Connection is the second one, and they should be available at your local bookstore, but if not, you can get them at Amazon or on my website. The ones that you buy there are actually signed, which is just so exciting. So you can get those there on my website. You can follow me on Facebook and anywhere else. But, you know, I'm pretty approachable. The people who follow my work tend to be pretty engaging, and so if you're of interest in any way, go to the website, read some posts, watch some videos, have a good time, and engage with the community.
Awesome, awesome. And, you know, if people were to leave the program, and let's just put a few picks and shovels in their hands, and as I mentioned, the viewing audience, the listening audience, like any of us, has challenges, obstacles, have a list of want-to-dos, should-dos, and life is pretty busy. If there were a couple things people could take away, sort of stepping into their truth, if I can use your word, sort of moving forward with things that are most important to them in light of the fact that they've got to live life and have responsibilities and overcome the past, what would you leave us with? Give us a couple things to take away. Okay.
First thing that I would say is that I would start your day off by really being clear about your priorities before you create your task list. We have a habit of filling our task list and filling our day with things that aren't consistent with our priorities in life. If your priorities really are spirituality and family and love and service, then that's your day. That's got to be the focus of your day. It can't be, I've got 1,000 things to do, and at the end of the day, I'll be a good dad, I'll be a good mom, I'll be a good Catholic, or whatever's important to you. That's the first thing. Second thing is I say gratitude is everything. It doesn't matter what's going on in your life, you have to be grateful. Number 3, I would say have faith, and it has nothing to do with what your spiritual beliefs are. It's just to have faith. Because if you're going through a hard time, just know that every morning the sun comes back up again and you have a new day to start over, to try again, and to figure things out. And things always work out in the end. They don't always seem like they will, but they always do. They always do. And they may not work out in the way you think they should, but in hindsight, they always work out. So I would say if you did those 3 things, if you really prioritized your life, you focused on gratitude, and at the same time you showed up in a way that was meaningful, supportive, consistent with your truth and your values, your life would be just that much better.
Well, you know, Seth, I have had 1, and now I have 2 favorite 4-letter words. One of my favorite is gift, G-I-F-T, and my second one now is Seth, S-E-T-H, because you've done exactly what this program is designed to do, and that you've opened your heart, your kimono a little bit, put your heart on the table, talked about yourself, your life, your journey, and this is really the Cliff Notes of Cliff Notes. in terms of your work in which you could help us understand in the teaching that you do. So you've exceeded the expectations anybody could ever have for somebody to come on this program. It's been an honor, a privilege, and you've been a great gift to the viewers and the listeners, and certainly to me. So thank you very much for the time.
Thank you, Mac. I appreciate it. It's been an honor.
And we will spend time again soon, my friend, because I want to help you push a few starfish back to the cliff or throw them back in the ocean. If we can do that together, that would be indeed a privilege to walk hand in hand in doing that kind of work. That would be a lot of fun. And also invite you and those that are with us now to stay tuned, because the woman who's coming on board next has a very fascinating story. I said gifts come to her in the most unusual ways. And I'll give you a little bit to think about in terms of a very successful, accomplished woman who has done things that many of us would only be in awe of, who owns just suitcases and clothes on her back, not an automobile and not a car, lives a fascinating life. Stay tuned for my next guest.
Need someone to ignite the torch of human potential in your company, group, or organization? We all need a fresh perspective from time to time, and the right speaker who possesses the vast references of experience and insight can stoke the fires in the hearts of those who long to make a significant contribution. Book the speaker, the author, and the inspired leader, James McPartland, who has been known to ignite the torch of human potential in people all around the world. Contact the JMAC Performance Group to learn more at www.jamesmcpartland.com.
I'm Jordan Mill.
Would you like to...
Well, it may just very be that you and I are about to be on. I don't know if the commercials have stopped. Barbara, can you hear me?
I can hear you great.
It is a very happy Thursday afternoon to you from me here in sunny Southern California. I think you are in the fine city of Birmingham, Alabama.
I am.
And I know there's a story in and around that. Barbara Singer, everybody, is my next guest for part 2 of this program called Unopened Gifts. And to reinforce to those that have been with us or have just joined us from a variety of networks, the purpose here is to inspire you, the listener, or the viewer, to be inspired to move forward in your life with something that you find frustrating, that you'd like to give time to, that you'd like to advance a cause upon. And I promise some of those opportunities to do just that will come from listening to some of my guests. This one will not disappoint. Barbara Singer is joining us, as I said, from the great state of Alabama. And true to form, I said gifts come in a variety of shapes, sizes, and configurations, often not with wrapping paper or bows on top. And I'm going to ask Barbara to tell a little bit of her story, but I can whet your appetite by telling you that one event, and I'll call it tragic, was the loss of a fiancé through death. There was I'd say a quite stressful, maybe there's another way to describe it, detachment from a daughter. There was loss of almost everything, a move out of the country, a finding a new relationship, somewhat of a new family, a new career, a new passion, and yet found time to do it all with very little on her back except her backpack or her 2 pieces of luggage, without the mortgage of a house or an automobile payment to worry about. Barbara Singer has found a way to transform setbacks into a force for good. Barbara, welcome.
Thank you.
And listen, it's an absolute pleasure to have you. When you and I spoke the other day, it was exciting. There was a bunch of people milling about behind you, and I was asking you what you were doing, and you were talking about the fact that you had just moved into this environment with your crew, and dinner was being prepared, and you were about to finish up with that quote-unquote assignment. And then it was off to another city for another adventure and another meal and some more wine. And listen, I didn't do you justice. Tell us a little bit of the Barbara Singer story.
Well, the short version, I was living the American dream. Big house, big job, a child in private school. I was a corporate sales executive, so the worst job, commission sales. And the more I accumulate, and I was married, the more I accumulated in wealth and stuff, the less I wanted it. Enough was never enough, and the treadmill just kept getting faster and faster. So I knew that at 45 years old, my only child was about to go off to college, that I could not do this lifestyle for another 20 years. The gap to retirement was just huge to me. My marriage was finished, and you just kind of do what you do for family's sake. But I met someone new and thought this new man was going to be the one in my life. And I gave up my marriage to be with him, and my daughter finally goes off to college, and the very next month he died of a heart attack. And so, as you said, it was absolute tragedy. And in the beginning, of course, I was so shocked and suffering and struggling. But over time, I learned to realize that Tom's death was the worst and the best thing that happened to me. The worst, obviously, I lost my love and I lost my future, what I thought was going to be my future. But the best thing, because it lit a fire under my chair that said, if you have a dream or you have a goal or a passion or an idea, that you better move on it when any given moment, it's gone. It's game over, and I wasn't going to get to choose that day. So also watching materialistically what happened to all of his lifelong accumulation, and of course his family did nothing wrong, but this is what happens when someone dies. And I just really saw how the material things meant nothing. And when you're gone, and it's the life that you left and the people that you touched that really means something.
And the story is really powerful, and I think that you could relate to by virtue of also some of the coaching work that you do. Is, I'd like to describe it as, when we're little people and little kids, that we have dreams of being Batman, Superman, Spider-Woman, the president, an astronaut. We're going to set the world on fire. And, as we get a little bit older, we sort of let that flames of enthusiasm die. We start reaching out to meet the expectations of other people, perhaps consciously, sometimes unconsciously. And often we can settle into the American dream. We get affirmations from society or from our careers, and we get caught up in life, and we have relationships, and we have children, and we have houses, yet there's still some music inside of us to be played that no matter what we do to try to null the music or dull the music, whether that's exercise or cooking or alcohol or shopping or working, it doesn't go out. And sometimes the setbacks are an opportunity to let the music play. It doesn't look like it at the time. And so the question behind that is the transition from the material girl, if you will, to go through that amazing setback to then land on your feet where you are. I'm sure you weren't by yourself. Was there a support team? How did you work your way through that? How would you encourage people who are in situations that are difficult to lift themselves up and move forward?
The first thing to do is be brutally honest with yourself. Somewhere in your heart, you know whether or not you're living an authentic life. And you know what your dream is. It may be really pushed far down. The best thing to do is to take about a month's leave of absence. If you can take it from your job and just go away in nature. That's what I did. I called my dad in Pennsylvania and asked if I could borrow his camper. And I had an intention to go out west to like Yellowstone and be in nature and just get away from everyone who's trying to help me. But at the end of the day, you have to figure it out on your own. And so he said, no, but I'll go with you, and can we go to Alaska? So at this point, I would have gone around the block. I was so desperate to get away and figure out what to do with the second half of my life. And so this isolation from all media, from friends and family, and being with my dad, and of course seeing beautiful nature. But it was really the other travelers that we met. There were people living amazing vagabond lifestyles, full-time RVers, people who would go to Skagway, Alaska, and work the cruise ship season, and then they would go to Hawaii or Key West in the off-season. And these people were living extraordinary, adventurous lives, and I said, I want that. So I get back to Orlando, where I was living, and I went to work one day, and I knew I was done. So I quit my job. I couldn't afford to keep my house and not have my big job, so I liquidated my house and rented it because the market wasn't ready to sell. And I drove away with 2 suitcases and a computer. And I have to tell you, that was one of the most freeing moments of my life. You have no idea how much time and energy and money we spend maintaining a home. No more lawn guy, no more broken faucets or toilets, no $20,000 roof. And eventually I sold my car too, so no more buying tires. My house and car were having a better lifestyle than I was.
And well looked after.
And so once I was able to move, I say when you have a house and a lot of responsibility, you're like a cruise ship. You're a slow-moving machine. And I just quickly got into a little speedboat so I could take advantages of opportunities that were coming. For example, when I left my Orlando, I was headed to South Florida in search of a tiki bar on the beach. All I wanted to do was see the ocean, work around happy people, and have no responsibility. I didn't find the tiki bar. I ended up at a marina bar where I met Captain Pete, and he was looking for crew to go island hopping in the Caribbean on his beautiful sailboat. And so I didn't know how to sail. I didn't really know Captain Pete, but here came an opportunity, and I said, you know what? I got a gut feeling. This is what I talk about, your instinct. Everybody has it. It's your hunch, but it's your unconscious mind. So when I had this chance to go, immediately my hand went up. I said, I want to do this. And then Barbara on the other shoulder goes, have you lost your mind? I want to go. It'll be so much fun. No, don't do it. And so I call it this whiplash, internal whiplash of me hearing my heart speak and my conscious mind telling me I can't do that.
You know, and that's interesting sort of description, if you will, because I think the stories that are in our head are what either propel us forward or hold us back, and we're the author of those stories, and often it's unconscious, at the unconscious level, as you describe. And let me ask you, and let me brace you for impact, because I'm going to drop the F-bomb here. And what that means is fear. I mean, through all of this, and all of us on a daily basis, if we're truly honest, what you're describing is really being authentic, we overcome fears, or we have to learn to overcome fears, and that's perhaps sometimes a daily learning. For you, you know, you had some setbacks, you were liberated, by the same token, stepping out into an arena you've never been before, that could have one guy on that shoulder really scaring you. How did you slay the fear monster in your life?
I felt like the worst thing that could have happened to me, loss of my fiance, loss of my future, loss of respect for my only child who thought I was totally unstable. I had already lost everything, so I just felt like nothing worse is going to happen to me. And I also had this thing that when the wheels fall off the bus, and I'm broke because money fears, along with other fears, but money is always a big one. When the wheels fall off the bus, I can always go back. I can always get another job, and I can rent an apartment and set up shop again. And once you put the cart before the horse and just say, you know what, I'm going to plop myself down in the middle of an environment and give myself a chance to see the opportunities. Serendipitous activities are happening all the time. That's not by chance. And then I definitely kind of followed The Secret. I'm sure you know about the law of attraction. And so two of my favorite mantras that I start every day with are, I am in the right place at the right time. All good things are happening to me now. And I'm a child of the universe, and abundance is my birthright. And so when you just put that out there first, but there are opportunities around us every single day that are leading us in the path. And you have to choose a door. You can't choose all the doors, and you can't choose none of the doors. But you have to give yourself a chance to stand in the hallway for a minute. And so close a door and close another door, and then you start to see new opportunities. But you can't have 2 feet or 1 foot in 2 different canoes. If you imagine trying to stand up in a canoe, you're all wobbly and it's not really working. That's change. So you're feeling very off center, but then you try to strike out on something new. Now you put a foot in another canoe and you're really going, can't stand up. You have to commit. So close the door on canoe A and step into canoe B and sit down, and then say, okay, I'm here. It may feel a little strange, but look around, and then the opportunities, they're right in front of you.
And Barbara, what I think is terrific about what you share is, particularly those rituals you go through every day, is it's almost as if you set your thermostat for the day in terms of things that you're going to look for, because what we focus on expands. And I think it's a pretty interesting distinction between what you look for in terms of what can be showing up in your life versus what could be considered obstacles, which will always be there. I've heard it say what's wrong was always available. But what's interesting about what you say, it's not coincidence, and probably for many of us through the walk of our life, there have been opportunities waving themselves at us, and we've been focusing on the fact that that opportunity was dressed in the wrong color shirt, or was in the wrong city, or said something I didn't like, or offended me, and we could create these stories that limit us. I mean, I think really a lot of my takeaway from your journey is It's how we set the program to look at the world, to see the opportunities, and to step further towards, as you say, your truth.
The less I knew what I was doing, the better life got. So in my old life, I was super A+. I had a list for everything. I had my day plan. I was going to do this and do that and accomplish this. And I ran marathons and, I did all of that stuff, but very regimented and very planned. And what I realized that when I was out of control, or letting the universe kind of control, or taking chances, that's when the doors really opened up. My little brain can only imagine so much, but the universe has a much bigger idea of how I'm going to play this game.
Really interesting. And let me ask you, given your background that you've described, and maybe there was some old programming that may be of service to you now, maybe not, but there were ways that you had a scoreboard of success, if you will. You had the car and the big job and the salary and the home and those types of things, which are no longer part of the fabric of your life. But yet in the realm of life that you are now experiencing, in order to deduce, if you will, that you are on the right path, that you are winning in the work you're doing, measured by the people that you impact and the people that you touch, and whether that's coaching or the work that you're doing like tonight in Birmingham, Alabama, is how do you gauge your victories now? How do you keep score of the journey?
I go for the joy. And so I always say, where do you get your juice? And so if you get your juice in your work, then you're in the right work. Or if you get your juice from helping someone else, then go help someone else. Eventually I landed in Italy after I got off the boat, and I rented a room from a lady in her home that I found on the internet. And I'm in the navigation station on the boat and somewhere in the Caribbean, and I'm looking at a website, rooms to rent, all over the world, and sublet.com for anybody who has the bug. And I found this room, and literally I got goosebumps on my arm, and I immediately knew this was the right place for me. I didn't look on a map exactly where it was. She told me I'm outside of Florence. I'm like, good, that sounds good. She told me I didn't ask all the right questions, but that was my gut instinct flying right into it. But anyway, 10 days later, I went to a winery as a tourist, met a handsome winemaker, drank the wine, and never came back. So now I live part of the year in Italy on a winery. And the beautiful part about, I didn't just land on any winery. I landed at a beautiful family home estate, and they make beautiful wine, and they wanted their wine to be well known. And so I was there with my little American marketing brain and watched how they made the wine and how they found their customers. And before I know it, I'm on a completely new adventure, promoting wine and making wine dinners. We travel with the chef, and I wrote this book, and I'm helping people live their dream and not be afraid, get unstuck. And it's just evolved into something completely new.
The journey sounds, as we've talked about, and I'm going to cheer, and that's only my way of getting the lights to go back on. And I think they did. So that's the life lesson to be learned. So the lights went out. That means the message was telling me something here. So in light of what you've described, it's in a way it sounds fairy tale like, but I also suspect that along the way, it's, what you said to me the other day, it's not all butterflies and sunshine. That perhaps there are things that pop up along the way to maybe test your commitment to your journey, to your truth, so that people who are listening and who want to aspire to go rent that place on the lake, I think the recognition of the fact that, the tests still pop up here on the road of life. Is that a fair description?
Absolutely. And I think today, just in our world as it is, that opportunities are closing on purpose. And I remember doing something specifically before with Tom and my daughter, and I did this sweeping motion on my arms, and I just said, get them off of me. I just feel so weighted down. And I had no idea what I was summoning the universe to do. My daughter went away to college, and Tom obviously went away in a very big way. But the old model of grow up, get a job, work for a company, get a pension, retire when you're 65, and live happily ever after, that model doesn't work for us. And I think globally that this has happened on purpose. And this whole baby boom generation, the rug has been ripped out from under us. But rather than say, I have no equity in my house, my good job is gone, rather than focus on that, switch over and say, woohoo, I'm free. I don't have to stay in this house anymore. This is not the place I'm going to live for the rest of my life. And maybe if I would move to another country where my dollar is stronger, I can live an amazing life and I can teach scuba diving in Costa Rica or, whatever your dream is. So I think just totally change it up. But the first part is stop living on autopilot. Be very conscious and aware of how you spend your time, what media you let into your world. If you would stop watching all media and selectively choose that in the morning I'm going to spend an hour or 45 minutes, 15 minutes if you pop on the news while you're getting ready, and say I'm gonna listen to tapes or CDs we all have our thing that we love. But I think it's amazing that if you really chunk the time of your day and build into it, first by eliminating all the things that don't work for you, decluttering, stop taking care of everything and your schedule that's totally overbooked, but then replace it consciously with activities that are going to get you to remember your childhood dreams and move you in a direction that you want to go.
Awesome. Tell us about the book, the coaching work. Expand on that a little bit for us.
Okay. The book is called Living Without Reservations. And of course it has a twofold meaning. So going without a plan and going without hesitation, just kind of flying by the seat of my pants. And it is the story of how I evolved from, of course, Orlando all the way to living at the winery in Tuscany. And the coaching has evolved because people who are reading the book or know my story are writing to me and saying, okay, how did you really do it? What do you do about money fears? What do you do about health care? Do you have a visa? What do you do about friends and family? And specifically about children, grown children, who are not happy with my decision. And my daughter, of course, was not happy at all, and I touch a lot on that. But if you go to Facebook, also Living Without Reservations, and you like it, there's a little free ebook called How to Quit Your Life. So I'm happy to share that. Very nice.
In the film version of the story?
Well, we've been dancing around Hollywood quite a bit. So the exciting part is no one's done a father-daughter road trip to Alaska where I'm the daughter, and then mother-daughter conflict where I'm the mother and my child is unhappy with me, and the evolution of a midlife crisis, so to speak.
Well, you have different and unique ways of soothing that. Tell us about what you're doing in Birmingham and how a night like tonight unfolds for you.
Well, I am here with my boyfriend, who's the third-generation winemaker at Il Savatici Winery in Tuscany. So if anybody's coming to Tuscany, come and visit us. And I'm traveling with Chef Andrea. So we make private dinner parties in the homes of our customers. And we make a 4-course dinner. We pour 4 different wines, and I do the dishes.
and I'm sure you're good at that and a whole lot more.
Well, it is an interesting spin how this American woman now is traveling with these Italians, and my Italian is still coming along. I wish it was better, but here I am.
And as you look out over the mounting corks in your life, or let's say the next mountains to climb, do you see things that are coming clear to you as you look over the horizon or as you climb this journey that you're on, or are you waiting for it to come to you? What do you see?
We meet so many amazing people on a tour like this. We'll be in 8 cities. We'll make 40 parties all over the U.S. And so we meet incredible people. And I always say, the right person is going to hear the story. So whether that means the film, something in reality TV, I would be very excited to coach people through the journey and have it be a documentary style. I don't know. I'm open and eager to see what comes next. That's one of my favorite mantras.
So it's like opening up the bottle of wine and letting it sit and then enjoying it when it's time.
Exactly.
So tell us this, Barbara. One of the things I like to do with the program on Open Gifts is have the folks that are tuned in tonight, or perhaps listen to this on a download sometime later, have 2 or 3 takeaways that, I like to say, if we were to put picks and shovels in the hands to go out there and work on the farm in Tuscany, what are 2 or 3 things you'd leave us with, and given the fact that folks, like all of us, are tuned in thinking, there's an obstacle I want to overcome, there's a fear I want to face, there's music in my heart I want to play, there's things I want to get to, and I'm stuck. And I hear your story, and I think, well, maybe she's the lucky one, and maybe she's unique, and she's different. I think what comes out of your story is, no, because really what could have happened in your story, it could have had a less than happy ending from the setbacks you've described. So what could you leave us with so that somebody getting away from this program could walk away and say, tonight I'm going to pick up the phone, or I'm going to talk to somebody, or I'm going to type a message, or I'm going to make a call, I'm going to buy a book, I'm going to step forward. Help us.
Definitely stop living on autopilot, as I said earlier. Be acutely aware of everything that you're doing, and stop doing everything that doesn't bring you joy. Physical clutter creates mental clutter. So you've got to change up the game. You have to make serious sweeping changes. I call it swift and firm. You know if you're in the right relationship. You know if you're in the wrong job. You know if you're living in Oklahoma and you love the ocean, you got to move. So, and then let the chips fall where they may. Stop being responsible for everybody else's happiness. If you're going to hurt someone's feelings by getting out of a relationship that you know isn't bringing you joy, you're setting that other person free so that they can find someone who really does love them, not out of pity or have to, financial. And then money fears, let the chips fall where they may. If you have so much debt and you're walking around going, I have so much debt, I'm never going to get out of it, either make a serious plan to get out of it or walk away from it. But either way, you're free. And so as long as you're walking around with all the burdens, you're going to feel so bad about yourself that you're not going to be able to make the changes. So list 3 major things that you know that you need to do, and just do it, and let the chips fall where they may. If you're not making people unhappy, there's nothing you can do about that. Second, busyness is a trick of the ego. They say that busyness is a trick of the ego. You are so important that, oh my gosh, the world is going to fall apart if you're not at the PTA, and you're not carpooling, and you're not making a home-cooked dinner, and you're not, I mean, the list goes on and on and on. I can guarantee you, if something happens to you, not that I'm saying it will or wishing this, those things will all be taken care of. And so you don't have to be the one. But as long as you're all over here and you're so busy, you don't have time to listen to your authentic voice because you're running around being so important. And let's see, that close one door and open another. It's not open another door and then the old one closes. You've got to stop doing something. You have to eliminate a job or a living situation, or sell a house, or move out of a house, move somewhere. And when you make the step to open another door, that's how something new happens. You can't have everything all the time, so you do have to be a bit tunnel vision. But I think we have it in reverse. Go plop yourself down in a marina bar, and guess what? Poof, out of nowhere materializes Pete. Plop yourself in the middle of Tuscany, and poof, you're on a winery. It works in reverse of what we think.
Very interesting. And you talked earlier about the law of attraction. What I would add to that, by virtue of what I hear from you, is in order for that to work, you've got to take steps forward. You've got to keep moving. You've got to take action. You've got to talk to people. You have to get on the internet, learn about new things. And so the opportunities are out there, but you also have to help yourself by uncovering those opportunities.
Exactly. And time management is probably, not time management, but if these are your 3 top goals, make sure that the way you spend your day on a daily basis builds in that you're going to accomplish those 3 things. If health and fitness is important, but you don't block out an hour to go to the gym and a half an hour to have your meal, take your lunch and prepare something, have healthy foods on hand, health and fitness is not a priority. Nowhere on a list usually of people's 3 top things is watch TV. And so TV is my big downer, because it's so good about sucking you in and taking all your time. You do need downtime, so you need that ebb and flow of the day, but making sure that the way you spend your day is in paralleling the top 3 things that are on your list. Family, career, we all have to have a job or work in some form. And then, as I said, it's health and fitness. But self-improvement, if you don't block out that I'm going to spend an hour reading a self-help book or watch a tape or something, then it's a dream. So a dream is someday I'm going to do something, or one day I'm going to live on an island or something. But a goal is where you have an action plan and you're actually taking events to make it happen.
You know, your last name, at least that you advertise on this program with me, is Singer. And you sing of some of the great life lessons that are very helpful and very practical, and spoken from a woman who's walking the talk, or flying the talk, or sailing the talk, if you will. But one more time, if I can give you the closing commercial, how do people get a hold of you?
The website is livingwithoutreservations.com, and you can also find that on Facebook. The book is also an ebook, so if you have a Kindle or a Nook, you can find it that way.
And also on your Facebook page, there's a chance to download some further information for free that also could be a helpful tool for our viewers tonight. Is that accurate?
That's right. I did this with very little money, so I'm not a trust fund baby, and I really was kind of flying by the seat of my pants.
It only takes one word, one message, one story to light a torch. And I think, Barbara Singer, you've lit a few torches here this evening. You've exceeded the gift wrapping expectations of this program, Unopened Gifts, because you've given us your story, the setbacks, the life lessons, what they've meant to you, how you reinterpret them, sort of shifted the paradigm of moving forward into something that you were designed to do but probably didn't know it until you went through those challenging life experiences. And you've been a great gift to us. I want to thank you very much.
Thank you.
And I hope that all of you will consider having Barbara and team come to your home and not only prepare a nice meal and have Barbara in the kitchen cleaning up. There might be other rooms you could put her on. I don't know if she'd agree to that. But there could be some great life coaching, a little bit coming out of the book, all discussed over a fine bottle of wine, because savoring the moment is about another way of using gift that's called present. And you've also given us that gift tonight. So Barbara Singer, thanks again for joining us. Enjoy Birmingham, Alabama.
Thank you.
And for all of you who've been with us, thanks very much for your patience in getting the program started tonight. Every Thursday at approximately 5 minutes past the hour, 2 o'clock Pacific Standard Time, we here on the program Unopened Gifts seek to bring you gifts by virtue of the inspirational stories of some amazing guests that you heard tonight from Seth and from Barbara. So download this later, upload it if that's the right word to use. Take the messages, because there's some real practical application to make a difference in your life. Send me a tweet at JMacGroup, or look up Unopened Gifts, or get on Real Coaching Radio and blog with us. We'd love to hear about your story, find out who we can bring on the program to tell more about what it takes to open a gift. Thanks for joining us, everybody. See you next week. Good night.
Today's podcast is brought to you by ObesityHotline.com, the silent killer, providing support and encouragement in the prevention of this rising epidemic. Featuring the Body by Vi Challenge. Is there a quick answer to the question? Go to www.obesityhotline.com. You're listening to Real Coaching Radio TV, building a positive network.